Millionaire Marries McDonald's, Waitress on a Dare. What happened next changed both their lives forever. Before we begin the story, leave a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. New York City, a cold December night. The wind swept through the stone-paved streets, carrying with it the glimmer of headlights and hurried footsteps. Above the city, towering steel and glass stretched into the sky, reflecting a harsh, artificial glow. Not a single star could be seen, only the shimmer of man-made ambition. And on the 72nd floor of the Westwood Tower, one light remained on. Noah Westwood. Age 36. CEO of Westwood Innovations, one of the most powerful tech empires on the East Coast. To the world, he was a prodigy-turned-mogul, a man who could turn code into gold, who could outsmart, outwork, and outlast anyone. He had everything. Except peace. Noah sat on the edge of his bed, staring out through the floor-to-ceiling glass. The city lights painted a soft glow across his chiseled features. A tumbler of untouched whiskey sat nearby. The room was silent, still, sterile. And just like every night before, he couldn't sleep. Insomnia had become a lifestyle. He'd tried medication, meditation, top-shelf scotch. Nothing worked, not because he wasn't tired, but because his mind had never known how to rest. There was a time Noah knew love, but only briefly. When he was 10, his mother, a gentle concert pianist, left without warning one rainy afternoon. No note, no goodbye. Just the echo of her last melody, still hanging in the hallway. His father, Richard Westwood, a ruthless real estate titan, said one sentence at dinner that night, with all the warmth of cold steel. "Love is weakness. You want to be respected? Don't ever let anyone see you need them." From that day forward, Noah built walls. Stone walls around emotion, steel walls around memory. He didn't cry, didn't confide, didn't trust. He only worked. Every word is precise, calculated. Here is no smile, no softness, only strategy. He doesn't convince. He commands. He's a fortress in a suit, untouchable and utterly alone. Over the years, Noah had relationships. On paper, models, attorneys, entrepreneurs, all attractive, all accomplished, all disposable. No one ever stayed. Or maybe he never let them. Because he didn't know how to love. He only knew how to win. And when he wasn't winning, he kept himself busy enough to forget he wasn't happy. That night, like so many others, Noah jolted awake at 3 a.m. No nightmare, no reason, just awake. He wandered to the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it. Not hungry, not thirsty. He moved to his study, staring at a small, dusty photo frame lying face down on the desk. He flipped it over. Inside, a younger version of himself, maybe 8, caught between two parents. His mother's arm wrapped around him, his father staring ahead. The boy's eyes seemed to be searching for someone, but not finding them. Noah touched the glass, just for a moment. A small gesture, but more vulnerability than he had allowed himself in years. And then fate knocked, disguised as something completely ordinary. A Saturday afternoon. A fast food lunch with old friends at a local McDonald's. Of all places, a meaningless dare, born from boredom, and a woman whose eyes would challenge everything Noah thought he knew about life, love, and what really mattered. McDonald's. Saturday, 7:36 p.m. Outside, neon lights buzzed quietly against the windows. Inside, the air smelled like fried salt and ketchup packets. Children squealed with laughter over Happy Meal toys. Exhausted parents stirred cream into lukewarm coffee, their eyes glazed from a week of errands, bills, and broken routines. The grill hissed in the back like a tired sigh, and behind the counter, the rhythm of work continued, precise, mechanical, uncelebrated. Then the door opened, and in walked a disruption. Two men, out of place, out of step, Noah Westwood and Chase Donovan. Childhood friends turned corporate juggernauts. Their suits were immaculate. Their watches cost more than most cars in the parking lot. Their confidence wasn't loud, but heavy, like the kind that settled into a room and made it smaller for everyone else. They ordered without looking at the menu and slid into the hard plastic booth like they were indulging a dare. "Jesus," Chase muttered, staring down at the grease-printed paper bag in front of him. "I haven't touched a cheeseburger in 15 years. "Welcome back to Earth," Noah replied dryly, peeling back the wrapper like it was an artifact. He didn't eat, not really. Just picked at the bun, his eyes wandering, half engaged, half elsewhere. And then they stopped. Across the restaurant, near the soda machine, a woman in a red and yellow uniform wiped down a table with slow, practiced motions. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even trying. Her ponytail had started to fall loose, and her sneakers looked 2 paychecks past new. There was a weariness in her posture, but not defeat. She moved like someone who knew exactly how much energy she had left and refused to spend it on anything unworthy. But it was her eyes that caught him. Not soft, not inviting, just present, sharp, watchful. A little tired but unflinching. The eyes of someone who had been underestimated far too many times and didn't bother correcting anyone anymore. And that's what froze him. Noah didn't believe in signs, or fate, or moments that meant something, but for some reason, he couldn't look away. Chase noticed. Of course he did. "Let me guess," he said, casually sipping his soda. "You're already wondering how long it would take to charm her. 2 weeks? A week? A weekend?" Noah smirked but said nothing. "You've had models, heiresses, venture capitalists. All of them came wrapped in ambition and highlighter. But this one?" Chase nodded toward the woman. "This one has a name tag and no idea who you are. She's probably raising a kid on tips and overtime. I bet you couldn't get her to dinner, much less—" He paused, then leaned in. "I bet you couldn't marry her." Noah looked up. No amusement this time, just mild curiosity. "Marry her?" he repeated flatly. "That's right. Marry her." Chase grinned. "No money, no name, no private jets, no penthouse dinners, just you. A man with no title, no bank account, no empire. Walk into her world and make her say yes." The silence stretched. The kind of silence where an idea starts to breathe. Chase folded his arms, his tone suddenly sharper. "You can close any deal. You can talk a boardroom into setting itself on fire. But can you earn something without buying it?" Noah stared at the woman again. She was helping a little boy who'd spilled his Sprite. She handed him extra napkins, wiped the table, and moved on without waiting for a thank you. Unbothered, unshaken, and utterly unreachable. "You think she's ordinary," Noah said finally. "But people like that, they're not ordinary. They're fortified, built from disappointment and resilience." "Exactly," Chase said. "You can't touch that with charm. You have to earn it." Then came the offer. "You win this bet," Chase said smoothly. "And I walk away from the e-commerce deal, all of it. My shares, my seat, the back-end profits. 20 million. No strings." Noah didn't blink. Not at the number. Not at the terms. He leaned back, glanced down at the half-eaten burger, then looked at the woman one last time. "I don't need the money," he said, almost to himself. "But I need something." "What?" Noah's voice dropped. Quiet. Controlled. The way someone speaks just before jumping off a ledge. "I need to feel something again." And so it began. The bet. Made in a plastic booth under fluorescent lights. Between 2 men who had everything, except the ability to connect, and a woman who had nothing, except a strength they didn't understand. The woman didn't see it. didn't hear it. She was busy stacking trays and resetting salt shakers. But in that moment, without her consent, without her knowledge, her life had just become the battlefield for someone else's emptiness. McDonald's. 7:47 p.m. The scent of hot oil clung to the air. Somewhere in the back, the fryer sizzled like a live wire, and the soft thump of paper bags being folded created a rhythm under the hum of conversation. Ice rattled in soda machines. Toddlers shrieked in triumph over plastic toys. A mother threatened a timeout with the quiet fury only a parent running on caffeine and 4 hours of sleep could manage. And in the middle of it all, Aurora Lane wiped down the last table by the window. She moved like someone who didn't need to rush, but couldn't afford to stall. Each swipe of her rag was brisk, focused, methodical. Her hair, pulled into a messy ponytail, clung to the back of her neck. She wore no makeup, but her skin held that quiet resilience only hardship could forge. Beneath her eyes were faint shadows that no concealer could ever hide. Not the kind from lack of sleep, but the kind born from years of carrying more than her share. But her eyes, those told the real story. Dark, steady, focused. Like someone who had long ago stopped asking life to be kind and had decided instead to simply survive it. Aurora Lane was 29 years old. Once she was something else. A biomedical engineer, sharp-minded, quick with numbers, the kind of woman who used to design machines that saved lives. Then the factory shut down. Then the man she trusted vanished when he found out she was pregnant. Now? She made minimum wage wiping ketchup from Formica tables, because someone had to pay for school supplies, sneakers, and the kind of cereal her daughter actually liked. Across the restaurant, Noah Westwood rose from his booth like a storm-gathering confidence. He adjusted his cuffs, smoothed his collar, and straightened his posture as if he were stepping onto a TED Talk stage. The move was instinctual, muscle memory from years of boardrooms, investor meetings, and curated charm. Chase, still seated, raised an amused eyebrow. "You really gonna try?" he asked, biting into a fry. "Watch and learn," Noah replied under his breath. But there was no smirk this time. His voice lacked the arrogance he was known for, because something in her, something in Aurora Lane, was already unraveling his script before he even crossed the room. He approached, casual but deliberate. "Excuse me," he said, voice smooth like polished glass. "Aurora, right?" She didn't look startled, just mildly annoyed, like someone who had just cleaned the same table twice because people couldn't pick up after themselves. She glanced at his shoes first, leather, Italian, worth more than her monthly rent. Then the suit, tailored, impeccable. Then the man, handsome, self-assured, too clean for a place that sold $1 coffee refills. "Yes," she said coolly. "Can I help you with something?" Noah offered a polite, practiced smile. "Actually, I was wondering if you might want to grab a coffee sometime. On your day off, of course." He kept his tone light. Pleasant, friendly even. He wasn't used to being nervous, but he was feeling it now, in that small, disorienting way powerful men do when they aren't immediately given the floor. Aurora blinked. Then she set her tray down with a soft clink, crossed her arms over her chest, and fixed him with a gaze so sharp it could have cut steel. "Let me guess," she said, one brow arched. "You're not from around here. You're used to getting your way. And you think showing up in a nice suit with a pretty face gives you some kind of advantage." "I mean, it's a good face," Noah said with a half-smile, trying to deflect with charm. She didn't laugh, didn't blink. "Look," she said, her voice clear, steady. "I don't date customers. I don't date men who look like they treat life like a poker game. And I'm not some prize to be won. So if you're here for entertainment, I'd suggest trying the drive-thru." Her tone wasn't angry. Just firm. Like a woman who had learned to speak boundaries before being interrupted. Like someone who'd been through enough to stop being polite about what she needed. And for the first time in years, Noah Westwood didn't have a reply ready. He blinked. Just once. Then he chuckled. Not out of arrogance, not out of disbelief, out of something far rarer. Surprise. Genuine, disarming surprise. "That's fair," he said softly, lifting both palms as if surrendering. "Honestly, I've been told no before, just not like that." "Glad I could be a first," she said, already reaching for her tray. "For what it's worth," Noah added before she could turn, "I don't think you're a prize. I think you're unexpected." That made her pause. Just slightly. She didn't smile. Not really. But the corner of her mouth pulled, a flicker, a twitch, like someone who'd heard every line in the book, but hadn't seen that one coming. "I've got tables to clean," she said, turning away. Noah stood there, still, watching as she disappeared behind the counter like nothing had happened. Behind him, Chase gave a slow clap. "Strike one," he said with a laugh. "You sure you still want to play this game?" But Noah didn't answer. Because just before Aurora vanished into the back, she knelt beside a small child sitting on a bench. A little girl with soft brown curls, a coloring book, and the same unflinching eyes. Aurora whispered something in her ear, kissed her temple, and helped her off the bench. And something shifted inside Noah. Not desire, not curiosity, something deeper. He didn't have a word for it yet. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't walking away. It wasn't the rooftop bar downtown. It wasn't the private club behind the glass elevator. This time Noah chose a place that didn't serve cocktails in crystal glasses or desserts shaped like art. It was a small coffee shop just off the park, a little hidden spot with creaky floors and the scent of cinnamon in the air. The kind of place where conversations didn't echo. They settled. Where nothing felt performative. He waited outside, leaning against a worn brick wall, coat open, hands in pockets. It was almost absurd. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company waiting awkwardly outside a corner cafe. Then Aurora appeared. She wore jeans, a navy sweater, and her hair tied back the same way it had been at work. Simple, practical. But somehow she looked more like herself now. Or maybe Noah was just finally seeing her without the blur of his own expectations. They sat at a table by the window. Outside, the wind rustled through golden leaves. Inside, two strangers, an ex-engineer turned waitress, and a man who never had to explain himself, began to talk. "So," Aurora said, sipping her coffee slowly, "what made you pick this place?" Noah smiled. "Honestly, I Googled quiet places where people might actually listen to each other. This came up." That made her laugh. A soft, real laugh. And Noah felt something inside him shift. She talked. Not much at first. But little by little, it came out. About Ellie, her 7-year-old daughter who loved puzzles and hated carrots. About the factory job she once loved. Designing equipment that saved lives. About how it all fell apart when the plant shut down. One notice. No severance. Just gone. And Noah froze. His hand stopped halfway to his cup. He didn't say anything, but something in his chest clenched tight. He knew that factory. 5 years ago he'd signed off on its acquisition. The numbers had made sense on paper. Cut costs, redirect assets, boost shareholder value. He never saw the people, never imagined them. And now one of them sat across from him, drinking coffee, smiling politely, trying to rebuild her life. He didn't tell her. He couldn't. Not tonight. "It must have been hard," he said quietly. "Losing something you built your life around." Aurora looked out the window, voice calm but heavy. Harder than I thought it'd be. I wasn't just losing a job, I was losing who I thought I was. Noah looked down, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt ashamed of having money, ashamed of never thinking twice, ashamed of a life where winning had meant watching numbers go up, without ever seeing who they pushed down. They didn't stay long. But when Aurora stood to leave, she offered him something unexpected. "Thanks for the coffee. I don't do this often, but I'm glad I came." And for Noah, that wasn't just progress. It was a crack, a shift, a start. That hour between day and night, when the sun lingers just long enough to make everything feel softer. Aurora Lane stepped outside her apartment, hoodie zipped, arms crossed against the autumn breeze. Her hair was pulled up messily, and her sneakers were scuffed. She looked tired, but not defeated. Never that. Noah Westwood was waiting by the curb, as he had so many evenings before. He didn't bring flowers, didn't arrive in a town car, just stood there, hands in his coat pockets, as if he'd been rehearsing something all day but still didn't know where to begin. "You're late," Aurora said with a small smirk, her arms still folded. "You're right," Noah replied, returning the smile. "Traffic, business calls, existential dread. Take your pick." That made her chuckle, just barely. They walked. They passed old picket fences and flickering porch lights. A dog barked in the distance. It was the kind of neighborhood where the streetlights buzzed louder than the conversation. For a while, neither of them spoke. It wasn't uncomfortable. Just careful. Noah had learned that silence, with Aurora, was never empty. It was space she gave him, space he had to earn the right to fill. They reached a quiet bench beneath a dying maple tree. Aurora sat first, arms still folded, legs crossed. Noah sat beside her, slightly angled, his hands still buried in his coat. And then he said it. Soft. Measured. Without performance. "I've spent most of my life chasing things. Success, power, status. But lately I've realized I don't even know what I'm running from anymore. All I know is I don't want to walk away from this. From you." He turned to her. "I don't know what this is yet. I just know I want to stay." Aurora didn't melt. She didn't lean into him or whisper some hopeful reply. Instead, she turned to face him fully, her posture straight, her expression steady, like a woman who had built her whole life on surviving without help, and didn't plan to stop now. "Okay," she said. "If you're serious about this, then I need to be clear about what it looks like." Noah sat straighter, unsure of where this was going. She took a breath. Her voice didn't shake. "This wouldn't be a fairy tale. Not some whirlwind romance. If we're doing this, if you're proposing anything close to marriage, then you need to understand a few things. First, I keep my job. Don't offer to replace it. Don't suggest I quit. I don't care how much money you have. I work because I need to, because I want to. Second, I don't love you. Maybe I'll get there someday, maybe not. But I'm not going to pretend just because it makes things easier for you. Third, Ellie comes first, always. She doesn't need a new dad. She doesn't need to be impressed. She needs to be safe. And I won't let anyone, not even you, jeopardize that." Each word landed with calm precision. She wasn't trying to push him away. She was drawing the lines she needed to feel safe. Noah didn't interrupt. He listened. And something in his chest, something tight and controlling, let go. All his life, people had agreed with him. Said yes, smiled at the right times. But this woman? She laid out terms like a contract, not for money, not for comfort, but for self-respect. "So," Aurora finished, "if you still want to do this, if you're not just chasing a challenge, then I'm here. But it'll be real. Flawed. Unromantic at times. It won't be what you're used to." Noah looked at her. For a long moment, he said nothing. And then, he smiled. "You just described the most honest relationship I've ever been offered." He reached for her hand, not to possess it, but to ask for permission. She let him. "So, yes?" he asked quietly. "On your terms?" Aurora nodded. "Yes. But don't forget, I can walk away just as easily as I said yes. Noah's estate, a modern marvel of architecture. All sharp lines, vast windows, and open spaces filled with curated art and the scent of expensive silence. The kind of home that looked magnificent in magazines, but felt cold to the touch. That's where Aurora and Ellie moved in. The security gate parted for them like a drawbridge over a moat. A black car pulled up to the front door. And in that moment, as Aurora stepped out holding her daughter's tiny hand, the contrast was stark. The woman and child looked like warmth. The mansion, like ice. Inside, everything was polished to perfection. Imported stone floors, minimalist design, furniture that whispered, "Don't sit here," even though it was meant to be used. It was beautiful, but it wasn't alive. Aurora didn't unpack all her bags. She didn't quit her job. She told Noah, firmly, that she would still work her shifts at McDonald's, because she needed her own money, her own routine, her dignity. Ellie, just 5, started preschool nearby. She missed the small apartment and the neighbor who gave her cookies on Wednesdays. She didn't understand why this big house had no laughter. Noah tried. In his way. He showed up at the kitchen table some mornings with coffee already made. He asked about Ellie's day. He offered Aurora rides, new clothes, even a home office she didn't ask for. But there was a glass wall between them. Invisible, but solid. Aurora was polite, grateful, but distant. She never asked for favors, never lingered in his presence. And at night, after Ellie was tucked in, she often sat in the guest room sketching on notepads, little drawings of medical tools, design ideas no one would see. And Noah? He worked late, still CEO, still managing deals, markets, numbers. But something inside him had shifted. He found himself canceling meetings just to be home when Ellie came back from school. He memorized her favorite cereal brand. He noticed when Aurora's back hurt, when her shoes were worn, when she was too proud to complain. And yet, he still felt like a stranger in his own home. Then came that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No jazz in the background, no television hum, just the soft tick of the antique clock near the staircase. Noah couldn't sleep. Insomnia had followed him for years, ever since childhood, ever since his mother left without a note. He wandered the halls barefoot, one hand trailing along the wall, passing rooms that had never been lived in. The moonlight spilled in through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the marble floor. And then, he saw it, the glow of a lamp from the study. He approached. Inside, he found Aurora, asleep at Ellie's tiny desk. Her body was folded forward, arms crossed like a pillow, head resting gently against her daughter's drawings. Her hair had slipped from its bun. Her shoulders were slumped, tired from the weight of 100 invisible battles. The desk lamp buzzed softly, casting a halo of light around her. Ellie's spelling workbook lay open. Beside it, a crayon drawing of 3 people holding hands. Noah didn't speak. He just stood there, barefoot, breath caught in his throat, watching, and something inside him cracked. Tears, uninvited, quiet, real, they welled up before he even noticed, because for the first time in his life, he saw it. What love really was. Not diamonds, not champagne, not grand gestures or candle-lit seduction. Love was this. A mother falling asleep at her daughter's side, too tired to climb into bed, too determined to rest only after her child was prepared for tomorrow. Love was sacrifice. With no audience, it was small, hidden, tireless. And in that moment, Noah Westwood, man of power, of profit, of polish, understood something he had never grasped before. Love, he thought, isn't loud. It's not a performance. It's the quietest thing in the room. And somehow, the strongest. He turned off the lamp, gently lifted Aurora's blanket from the couch, draped it over her shoulders, and as he stood there, watching her breathe softly, he realized he didn't want to win her. He wanted to deserve her. The rain had started just after sunset, soft at first, barely a whisper against the glass walls of Noah's study, then steadily growing heavier, as if the sky itself was urging him not to open that file. But he did. Noah sat alone at his massive oak desk, a glass of untouched whiskey at his elbow, his laptop glowing faintly in the dark. The folder was old, buried deep in the archives, a series of acquisitions from 7 years ago. Factories shut down, thousands laid off. Market impact, negligible. Shareholders pleased. It should have been routine. But one name stopped him: Cold Millbridge Medical Components, a small factory in rural Pennsylvania, closed to cut costs, hundreds of jobs lost, no severance, just one signature. His. Noah's breath hitched as he clicked through the report. Employee evaluations, termination logs, a spreadsheet of affected staff, and there it was. Lane, Aurora. Department, biomedical design. Status, laid off, single, pregnant, no severance. Manager notes. Promising. Dedicated. Quiet leadership potential. He stared at the screen, unmoving. The room around him seemed to fade away. The woman who now slept under his roof, who made oatmeal in his kitchen, whose daughter colored pictures for his fridge. She hadn't just been a casualty of circumstance. She had been a direct consequence of him. His heartbeat pounded like thunder. Noah stood abruptly, the chair scraping the floor behind him. He walked to the window, staring into the rain-smeared night. How had he never known? Because he'd never cared to ask. Because for so long, people had been numbers. Outcomes. He had been trained to win, not to feel. But now? Now he felt everything. The shame, the horror, the betrayal, not hers. His. I broke her, he thought. Long before I met her, I broke her life. Across the hall, he could hear Ellie's laughter echo faintly from the playroom. A lullaby played from the smart speaker Aurora had set up with a budget speaker and borrowed Wi-Fi. And suddenly the house felt wrong. Too big, too hollow, too undeserved. He sank back into his chair. Not as Noah Westwood, the tech mogul. Not as the man chasing redemption. But as the man who, without ever knowing her name, had taken away her future. He wanted to run to her, to confess, to beg. But he couldn't. Not yet. Because what do you say to someone you unknowingly destroyed? I'm sorry, felt too small. I didn't know, felt too selfish. I've changed, felt like a lie. So he sat there, frozen, the glow of the laptop screen lighting his haunted face. The morning had started like any other. The sun filtered gently through the tall windows of Noah's mansion, spilling golden light across polished floors and untouched furniture. In the kitchen, Aurora was packing Ellie's lunch. Peanut butter sandwich, a juice box, a sticky note smiley face tucked inside. Ellie laughed as she ran through the halls, barefoot, trailing ribbons and innocence. Noah watched from the entryway, still in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. There was something different in him now. Softer, slower, like a man finally learning to live at the speed of real life. And just as peace began to settle, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a butler who answered. It wasn't staff. It was Noah himself, habit now. And on the other side of the door, Chase Donovan. Same expensive shoes, Same smug grin, but this time there was something else behind his eyes, something cold. "Noah," he said, stepping in without being asked. "Aurora home?" Noah froze. "Why are you here?" Chase smiled like a snake in silk. "Thought I'd see how your little project turned out." Aurora stepped into the hallway just as Chase's voice sharpened. "You didn't tell her, did you?" He turned to Aurora, then to Ellie, who clung gently to her mother's hand. "Did he tell you the truth about why he married you?" Silence. Aurora tilted her head slowly, brow furrowed. "What truth?" And then, with the glee of a man lighting a match to a house he didn't live in, Chase said, "It was a bet. The marriage. You were a dare." The air shifted. Everything stopped. Even Ellie fell silent. Aurora's eyes darted to Noah, searching, begging for him to say it wasn't true. But Noah didn't speak. His silence said everything. Chase continued, casually cruel. "McDonald's, remember? I said he couldn't win over someone real, so we bet on you. He'd marry you, no money, no status, just to prove he could." His words landed like bullets, one by one. And when he was done, he smiled and walked out. Aurora stood still. For a long, terrible moment, she didn't say a word. Then, with trembling hands, she pulled Ellie closer, and her voice broke. Quiet at first, then cracked wide open. "I trusted you. I let my daughter trust you." Her chest rose and fell with the kind of pain that has no words. The kind you don't scream, you just carry. Noah stepped forward, eyes full of panic, voice barely above a whisper. "Aurora, it started that way, but it changed. I changed." But she shook her head. "No, what changed is that I believed you. That was my mistake." She turned, clutching Ellie against her chest, eyes swimming in disbelief and devastation. "I was wrong," she said, voice quaking. "I thought, maybe someone like you could change, but all along, I was just part of the game." And with that, she walked out. No yelling, no theatrics, just the sound of her footsteps echoing through the marble hallway. And then the door closed. Noah stood alone in the silence. No suit, no power, no armor. Just a man who had finally learned the cost of playing with something he never truly understood. A heart. Noah Westwood once commanded entire boardrooms with a glance. His signature alone could swing markets, close deals, and make or break futures. And now that signature was the last thing he used, to sign it all away. He stepped down. From everything. Resigned as CEO, liquidated his shares, walked out of the empire he built brick by digital brick. Not in disgrace, but in silence. No press release, no farewell party, no golden parachute. Just a man shedding the skin of power because it no longer fit. Weeks later, he arrived in a town that barely remembered him, though his decisions had changed it forever. The welcome sign still stood, cracked and sun-faded. "Welcome to Brenton, where hard work built futures." But there were no futures left here. Empty storefronts, rusted-out pickups, a diner with a flickering neon sign that hadn't been fixed in 5 years. This was where the factory once stood, where Aurora once stood, pregnant, abandoned, jobless. And it was here that Noah came to begin again. He didn't come in a town car. He drove himself. Didn't stay at a hotel. He rented a modest room above the post office. No assistants, no tailored suits, just jeans and a button-down too worn for Wall Street. On the second day, he found Jude, an older man, worn baseball cap, calloused hands, oil under his fingernails that soap couldn't wash away. Jude used to be Aurora's mentor. They built machines together, back when the machines still mattered. When Jude saw Noah walking toward him, his expression hardened. He didn't say hello, didn't offer his hand, just crossed his arms and waited. Noah spoke quietly. I shut it down. the factory. I thought I was making a business decision. But I didn't see the people. I'm here now to try to make it right." Jude's laugh was bitter. "Right? You come back with a haircut and a clean shirt and think that makes it right?" Noah nodded. He didn't argue. He had no defense. "I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to rebuild something. Not a factory, a future. For the people who lost theirs because of me." And so it began. Not with a speech, not with a donation check, but with Noah showing up every morning at the old town hall, the food pantry, the broken-down rec center. He listened more than he spoke. Carried boxes, painted walls, talked to people, really talked. He sold one of his remaining assets and started the Brenton Renewal Fund. A program for job training, small business grants, single-parent support. It wasn't flashy. There were no ribbon cuttings. But slowly, something started to shift. Children who once played in cracked parking lots now had after-school programs. Mothers like Aurora, single, overwhelmed, had childcare options again. And men like Jude, who once vowed never to shake Noah's hand, helped him organize job fairs. Noah no longer introduced himself as Noah Westwood, just Noah. No title, no past. He ate at the diner, shopped at the hardware store, sat on the bench outside the library just to feel the wind on his face and the sound of life moving around him. And one night, weeks after the day Aurora left, Noah walked home under the soft glow of a Brenton sunset. And for the first time in years, he wasn't haunted, he wasn't running, he wasn't hollow, he was exhausted and grateful and, strangely, whole. For the first time, he wasn't anyone important. He was just someone trying to be good. No headlines, no stock tickers, just hands that built instead of destroyed. And that, finally, was enough. It was early spring when Jude knocked on Aurora's door. The trees outside were still bare, but the light had changed. Warmer now, with the promise of things trying to grow again. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of grilled cheese and crayon wax. Ellie was coloring at the kitchen table, her little feet swinging off the chair, humming to herself. Aurora answered the door in a faded sweatshirt, sleeves pushed to her elbows. Her eyes narrowed slightly when she saw him. "Jude?" "Hey," he nodded. "Got a minute?" They hadn't spoken in months, not since the factory closed, not since she left that cold mansion with tears on her cheeks and a daughter clinging to her coat. She stepped aside. They sat on the old couch, the kind that had lost its shape from years of small struggles. Jude held his trucker's cap in his hands. He didn't look like a messenger of anything important, but his voice had weight. "I saw him," he said simply. "In Brenton. He's been back a while now." Aurora didn't flinch, but she didn't breathe either. "He sold everything. The company, the penthouse, even the damn car. He drives a second-hand Ford now, lives in a room over the post office." Aurora looked away, jaw tense. "Is this your way of telling me he's suffering? That I should feel sorry for him?" Jude shook his head. "No, he's not asking for pity. Hell, he hasn't even said your name. Not once." That made her look at him. "He's rebuilding things, Aurora. Quietly, brick by brick. Job training programs, grants for single moms. He got the old rec center reopened. I don't think anyone in that town even knows who he used to be." She blinked slowly. "You think he's changed?" Jude exhaled. "I don't think, Aurora. I see it. He shows up every morning before the sun and leaves after the chairs are stacked. He listens. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't hide. It's not the Noah we knew. Hell, I don't even think he knows who he is anymore. But whatever he's becoming it without applause." For a long while, Aurora said nothing. She stared at the corner of the room, where Ellie had fallen asleep on a pile of storybooks. A soft snore rose from her little nose, innocent and safe. Aurora's heart tightened, because she didn't want to believe him, because believing meant hope. And hope, for someone like her, was dangerous. But it was Jude who came. Jude, who never sugarcoated anything. Jude, who once said, "Men like Noah don't change. They just rebrand." And now he was here, quiet, steady, eyes clear. "I'm not telling you what to do," he said finally. "I'm just saying, sometimes people don't come back for you. Sometimes they come back because they finally see who they really are and want to fix what they broke on the way." He stood, reached for his hat. "Anyway, just thought you should know." After he left, Aurora stood by the window long after the streetlights came on. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood there, arms crossed, mind turning. The camera would pan slowly away now. Not on a resolution, not on forgiveness, but on a question. If someone truly changes, does the one they hurt owe them a second look? That answer hadn't come yet. But maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to ask it. It had been a year, 12 full moons since everything came undone, and everything began again. The community park, once abandoned and overgrown, now bloomed with life. Paper lanterns swayed from tree branches. Children laughed near the booths. The scent of cinnamon kettle corn drifted through the late afternoon air, carried by the hum of music and voices. And in the center of it all, a small wooden stage. Rough, uneven, hand-built by volunteers. Tonight wasn't about money. It wasn't about titles. It was about people finding each other again. Noah Westwood stood at the edge of that stage, hands trembling slightly at his sides. He wore no watch, no tailored suit, just jeans, work boots, and a button-down shirt rolled at the sleeves. A man stripped of all symbols, except one, his voice. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, clearing his throat. "Some of you know me. Some of you knew who I used to be." Laughter, quiet and kind, rippled through the crowd. "A year ago, I thought I could fix everything by writing a check. I thought redemption was just reputation management." He looked out into the audience and found her. Aurora stood beside the community art table, Ellie's small hand in hers. Her expression was unreadable, calm, watchful. "But then I met a woman," Noah continued, voice softening. "She didn't care who I was or what I had. She looked right through all that and saw who I wasn't." He took a breath. "And instead of trying to impress her, I hurt her. Instead of earning her trust, I broke it. But even then, she still taught me what love actually is." There was a pause. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the wind seemed to wait. "Love," he said, now turning to face her fully, "isn't winning. It's not a prize or a bet. It's waking up every day and choosing truth over pride, responsibility over comfort, giving without expecting." He stepped down from the stage. Each footfall echoed with meaning. People parted as he moved through the crowd, stopping just a few steps from her. Ellie released Aurora's hand and ran straight into his arms, wrapping around him like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Noah knelt, kissed her forehead, then looked up, right into Aurora's eyes. "I once bet I could marry you," he said quietly. "But now, I'm not asking for a win. I'm asking for a chance, not to impress you, but to show up for you, as your partner, as Ellie's father, as a man who's finally learned what it means to love." Aurora didn't speak at first. She studied him, the way one might study an old photograph, trying to recognize what changed and what stayed the same. Then she stepped forward, took his hand, and leaned in close enough for only him to hear. "We forgive you," she whispered. "But from now on, you live for what's right, not what's easy." He nodded. A single tear slipped down his cheek. Always. The crowd erupted, Not with cheers, but with quiet smiles and the soft hum of something rare, respect, and maybe a little bit of belief. Scene 12. A second family. The life they built 2 years later. Their home wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. A small house by the lake, painted white, with sun-worn shutters and a vegetable garden in the back. Laughter came easy here. Chores were shared. Grace was abundant. Noah worked for the town full-time now, developing programs for single parents and laid-off workers. He shook hands with janitors and school teachers the same way he once did with shareholders. Aurora taught STEM classes at the local library. Her students adored her. So did the parents. And once a week, she and Ellie would bring cookies to the community center, just because. And then there was Grace, a baby girl with Noah's eyes and Aurora's fierce, steady spirit. Her name wasn't a coincidence. It was a testimony, because Aurora once said, "We all mess up. We all break things. But if someone is willing to rebuild with bare hands, to learn to love from the ground up, then they deserve a second chance." That's what grace is. It's not forgetting the past. It's choosing to hope for something better.